Agriculture didn't save humanity from starvation. In some ways, it caused it. Early farmers were shorter, sicker, and had worse teeth than the hunter-gatherers who came before them. Skeletal records from the agricultural revolution show a population in decline, not progress. The upgrade to farming might have been one of the worst trades humans ever made for their own bodies. Bioarchaeologists George Armelagos and Mark Nathan Cohen spent years comparing skeletons from before and after the shift to farming across multiple ancient populations. The same pattern kept showing up. Average height dropped by several centimeters. Tooth enamel carried new lines of childhood malnutrition. Bones showed more evidence of infectious disease than ever before. Whatever farming gave humanity, it apparently took something back first. But here's the detail that gets left out of the textbook version of this story. The people farming weren't switching from starvation to abundance. They were switching from one kind of eating to a completely different one, and the before picture is far stranger and far better than most people assume. In 1963, anthropologist Richard Lee traveled into the Kalahari Desert to live among the Jew/Huansi, one of the last hunter-gatherer populations on Earth still living the way humans had for almost the entire length of their existence. Lee didn't guess at what they ate, he counted it. Over the following years, he documented 105 different edible plant species the Jew Huansi used, alongside dozens of species of animals, insects, and birds. 105. Today, just 3 crops, wheat, rice, and corn, supply more than half of all the calories consumed by every human being on the planet. Most of those 105 plants weren't even the main event. The real backbone of the Jew Huansi diet was a single food, the mongongo nut, dense, oily, abundant, and so calorie-rich that Lee calculated a single day's gathering could supply enough energy for an adult for nearly 2 days. It grew wild, unplanted, unfertilized, unowned by anyone, scattered across the desert floor by trees that had been doing this without human help for thousands of years. Here's where the popular image of hunter-gatherer life starts to fall apart completely. We tend to picture a constant, desperate search for food, every calorie clawed out of a hostile landscape. Lee's data said something close to the opposite. Adults in the group he studied spent somewhere between 12 and 19 hours a week on subsistence activities, gathering, hunting, and food preparation combined. Not 19 hours a day, 19 hours a week. The rest of the time went to rest, conversation, ritual, and a kind of unstructured stillness most people today have completely lost the ability to sit inside. This wasn't a one-off case. Researchers studying other foraging populations, the Hadza of Tanzania, Aboriginal groups across Australia, Arctic peoples adapted to almost the opposite environment, kept finding versions of the same pattern. Wildly different diets, wildly different climates, but the same underlying strategy. Eat from dozens or hundreds of sources instead of one, so that if any single food disappeared for a season, nothing close to catastrophe followed. Now compare that to what happened the moment humans started farming. A farming community didn't eat from 100 sources anymore. It ate from 1, maybe 2, planted in straight rows, watered, weeded, and defended against everything that wanted to eat it first. That single crop could feed far more people per acre than foraging ever could, which is exactly why farming spread. More food per square mile meant more humans per square mile, but something darker rode along with the surplus. One blight, one bad season, one failed harvest, and there was no backup plant quietly fruiting somewhere else in the territory. The diversity that had ensured every hunter-gatherer group on Earth against famine was the first thing agriculture deliberately threw away. And the population density farming made possible brought its own price. Dense, settled communities living beside their own livestock and their own waste became the perfect incubator for diseases that simply couldn't have existed in small, mobile foraging bands. Tuberculosis, measles, several strains of influenza, these belong to the agricultural world, not the foraging one. The skeletons Armelagos and Cohen studied weren't just shorter, they were sicker in entirely new ways that hunter-gatherers scattered too thin and moving too often had mostly never been exposed to. So why did farming win if the foragers it replaced were, by almost every physical measure, doing better? Because evolution and history don't reward individual health. They reward whichever strategy produces more surviving offspring, even if every one of those offspring is a little shorter, a little sicker, and a little more likely to die of something a young child 1,000 years earlier would never have encountered. Farming wasn't an upgrade for the people living through it. It was a numbers game the foragers simply lost by being outnumbered. There's a quiet, uncomfortable thread running underneath all of this. The diversity that once protected humans from famine didn't disappear because anyone made a careful decision that wheat, rice, and corn were the superior choice. It disappeared because those three plants happened to produce the highest yield per unit of human labor, and labor, once farming existed, became the new currency that mattered most. Nobody voted to trade 105 plant species for three. It just happened to be the version of eating that could feed the most mouths the fastest, and the fastest version always wins, regardless of what it costs the bodies eating it, which puts something strange in front of you the next time you're standing in a grocery store aisle that looks on the surface like the most abundant food environment in human history. Look closer at the labels. Corn syrup, wheat flour, rice starch, the same three plants, rearranged into thousands of different packages, dressed up to look like variety. Somewhere in the Kalahari, less than a century ago, a single afternoon of gathering could put more genuinely different foods on the table than most people will eat in an entire month today. We didn't trade scarcity for abundance, we traded variety for volume, and somewhere along the way, we forgot there used to be a difference.